much away, it's going to dilute it. Ambassador Witherspoon, we welcome you to make your keynote address. Welcome to the floor.
Good morning. Madam First Lady, Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed delegates, ladies, gentlemen, friends. On behalf of Dr. Joseph Newman Baker, President of the Republic of Liberia, and Madam Sarah Nyanti, Minister of Foreign Affairs, I'd like to thank you for honoring Liberia by asking me to give this keynote address here this morning. Today, we gather under the powerful theme of global solidarity, a call to action that resonates deeply within our hearts and minds, evoking a historical mandate to restore dignity and reclaim our legacy as Africans and people of African descent. Let us journey together today, exploring the innovation of science, celebrating the vitality of culture, and embracing the transformative power of education. Africa, often referred to as the cradle of humankind, has long been at the forefront of scientific discovery. Long before the advent of modern laboratories and sophisticated technologies, Africans demonstrated unmatched ingenuity in metallurgy, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, engineering, and agriculture. We celebrate the rich scientific traditions of ancient Egypt, the advanced astronomical practices of the Dogon in Mali, and the remarkable iron-working techniques of the ancient Nok civilization in present-day Nigeria. Yes, today, our continent's narrative in science and innovation often remains overshadowed by centuries of exploitation and neglect. Restitution in the sciences is not just about reclaiming artifacts, it is about recovering a legacy of knowledge that has been systematically erased or appropriated. There is widespread consensus that the sciences play a crucial role in driving the economic development that Africa needs. Asian nations have demonstrated the potential outcomes that can be achieved when the sciences are used effectively. Currently, we observe a lack in scientific advancements compared to other continents. However, this situation has not always been the case. Historical evidence reveals that numerous scientific breakthroughs originated from Africa, including advancements in iron smelting and the field of vaccinations. It is essential to highlight that Africa's significant contributions, previously overlooked, have been notably illuminated by the pioneering UNESCO General History of Africa. What factors, I dare ask, contributed to Africa's decline in scientific prominence? The interruption of our developmental trajectory was primarily due to the effects of colonialism. So let Africa Week renew our collective commitments to reshaping the narrative and transforming the continent into a thriving hub of scientific research and innovation. Through global solidarity, let us cultivate equitable partnerships that empower African scientists, enhance our research capabilities, and promote inclusive access to scientific breakthroughs. In doing so, we ensure that science serves as a bridge connecting us to a prosperous future founded on equity, justice, and mutual respect. Education is the cornerstone upon which restitution and restoration must ultimately depend. Our history vividly demonstrates education's transformative potential. From the ancient universities of Timbuktu to Liberia's quest for knowledge after centuries of struggle. Yet today, educational disparities continue to plague Africa, perpetuating cycles of poverty, marginalization, and inequity. Restitution through education necessitates addressing systemic inequities, revising curricula to reflect authentic African perspectives, and making strategic investments in educational infrastructure and innovative practices. Africans were provided with a curriculum that emphasized recitation, rote memorization, and regurgitation. Decades after decolonization, many of our school systems have undergone significant overhauls. But if Africa is to advance, our schools must foster critical thinking, which is foundational to the sciences. They must also introduce students to the continent's history of innovations. That form of knowledge is empowering. This is precisely why it was excluded from the colonial curriculum. Africa's cultural richness is unparalleled, diverse in expression, powerful in symbolism, and profound in its historical resonance. From the rhythmic heartbeats of our drums to the intricate storytelling woven out into the fabrics and dances, African culture serves as the lifeblood of our communities. Culture encompasses deeply ingrained habits of thought and instinctual behavioral patterns. This explains why some consume pea grains or crickets, while others find these options distasteful, even revolting. Furthermore, culture is vital for another reason. It provides a framework that promotes seamless collaboration within groups sharing a common cultural background. But yet this cultural heritage, has endured centuries of dispossession. Countless artifacts, as we've seen and heard earlier, remain displayed in foreign museums, disconnected from the context in which they were created. Culture, the essence of our identity, demands restitution, not merely symbolic gestures, but comprehensive actions that restore our cultural treasures, honor our ancestors, and revitalize our creative industries. So today I urge global solidarity in promoting respectful and meaningful exchange of cultural heritage. Let us reclaim our cultural treasures to inspire our youth, fuel creativity, and stimulate sustainable development. Culture is a resilient force, a vehicle for reconciliation, and a catalyst for innovation. Through restitution, we empower African communities, reinforce our identities, and ensure our heritage thrives for future generations. So I will now endeavor to connect the three strands in a cohesive manner. To advance in the sciences, Africans need to establish a cultural framework that promotes and supports innovation. This effort requires educational systems, and we can't say that often enough, and supports innovation, which integrate critical thinking and foster an understanding of our historical context. We have consistently pursued innovation and maintained our position at the forefront of knowledge production. Nevertheless, due to the effects and ramifications of colonialism, many of our most talented individuals are working outside the continent. Opportunities for others within the continent remain limited at best. We must halt the brain drain by establishing a cultural framework that encourages seamless collaboration within our countries and across Africa and the Caribbean. Speaking of the Caribbean, the African Union has designated the Caribbean as our sixth region, our diaspora. Now, as someone with ancestral roots in the Caribbean, I will summarize three pivotal components of CARICOM's plan for reparative justice that merits your consideration on this auspicious occasion. Colonization civilization caused severe damage to indigenous cultures and languages, as well as those of enslaved Africans and indentured laborers. This destruction has created a gap in historical knowledge, making it challenging for these groups to understand their pre-colonial lives and the trauma of colonization. This lack of understanding also impacts their recognition of how they achieve freedom and gradually rebuild their lives. So restoring historical memory through community institutions such as museums will help citizens understand crimes against humanity and acknowledge their ancestors' contributions to healthcare and technology. Without such institutions, many feel rootless. Returning cultural heritage would provide access to critical information currently held primarily by foreign entities, benefiting Caribbean educators, students, and researchers from all across the world. So the CARICOM reparative justice agenda, quite similar to the AU's, rightly asserts that destroying historical memory is a crime requiring reparations. Let me say that again. The reparative justice agenda of CARICOM and the AU rightly assert that destroying historical memory is a crime requiring reparations. There was hardly any effort during the period of enslavement and colonization to establish a proper education system that served the needs of indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans, and indentured workers. This reluctance may stem from the deliberate desires of colonizers to maintain an uneducated labor force dedicated to backbreaking and deadly work. Colonization also created a situation where foreign culture was imposed on the populations living in CARICOM region, as in Africa, including those forcibly brought to the area and those who were brought under partially voluntary contracts. This forced acculturation stemmed from the incorrect and racist idea that the full and rich cultures of each of these groups were inferior and needed to be erased. The countries involved in colonization deliberately attempted to distance people from the sources of their culture and belonging. Nations responsible for colonization and slavery made a concerted effort to dismantle African heritage. Conversely, other groups introduced to the CARICOM region were granted the right to return to the homelands to explore their history and culture. However, a comprehensive right to return for enslaved Africans did not exist. This policy created a distinct disconnection and was fundamental to the colonial agenda. The forced separation of Africans from their homelands has resulted in cultural and social alienation from their identities and sense of belonging. Therefore, an aspect of reparative justice involves a program designed to restore dignity, without one approach being intensified efforts to reconstruct bridges of belonging. Furthermore, global solidarity must promote a revitalized education paradigm that acknowledges Africa's intellectual heritage, highlights the importance of STEM disciplines, nurtures cultural pride, and adequately prepares our youths for the complexities of the future. We must equip our young minds not only to adapt, but also to take the initiative and innovate. May this Africa Week inspire action and nurture partnerships that extend beyond mere rhetoric. Let us strive to ensure that education becomes our most enduring legacy. A legacy marked by restored dignity, revitalized heritage, reparative justice, and reclaimed power. I'm reminded of a plant known as the Chinese bamboo, as some of you may know. For the initial 4 years, it grows minimally above the ground. However, beneath the surface, it cultivates a substantial root system. In the 5th year, the plant experiences significant, even exponential growth, reaching heights of up to 80 feet. The success of the 5th year, my friends, is contingent upon the preparatory efforts invested during the preceding 4 years. We've convened here and engaged in these discussions for a considerable time now, so let us designate 2025 as our 5th year, a year characterized by deliberate action. Not long ago, I met a Liberian student named Maya studying archaeology in Ghana. With fierce passion in her eyes, she told me how she had once seen a Liberian ancestral mask, not in Liberia, but behind a glass in a European museum. She whispered, "Ambassador, how do we connect with our ancestors when we must buy tickets to visit the only symbols and artifacts left behind to remember what they stood for in foreign countries?" That, dear friends, is the emotional weight of dispossession. And Maya's question lingers, not just for Liberia, but for every African child wrought of heritage, history, and identity. So today, let us commit to inspiring Maya and millions like her to view the heritage not in a distant museum, but in their own home countries. Our assembly here today must transcend being merely a hand-clapping occasion. It should stand as a significant moment for historical reflection and renewed dedication. Together, we must leverage science, cultivate culture, and enhance education to create an Africa that is resilient, proud, and fully restored in dignity and strength. I thank you.